G'day guys, welcome back to yet another episode of Caleb's Conversation podcast. It's been a while and yet we're back, ready to go. And today I have brought on the one and only Harry Cable, a good friend of mine. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Excited to be on, finally.
So you and I got to know each other a little bit through film school, and then we got to know each other a lot more because we've been working together in the sport broadcasting industry, and we work with similar companies and stuff like that. So we've had similar experiences in recent times. So, but before we kind of address what's been happening in recent times, I want to hear from you because you were originally from Darwin, correct?
Yes.
And then you moved from you and your family moved up to Brisbane. So
we moved down.
True. Moved down to Brisbane. So what was the motivation for coming down?
My parents moved before me. I didn't live with them, and then they kind of said Brisbane's cool, come down, because Darwin is, well, it's good to grow up in. There's not much opportunity there, so it's a bit of a small town. Decided to come to Brisbane and just see what happens. Didn't really have a motivation, but
when did you move down? What age?
When I was 21.
Okay.
So about 2016. Yeah, about then. And just decided Brisbane seemed cool. I've been to Melbourne a few times, tossed that up, but it's such a massive city. And I'm kind of glad I didn't move to Melbourne.
Yeah, it's kind of a big culture shift moving from a small town of Darwin to the big city life of Melbourne. I can imagine that would be quite intimidating.
Yes.
Because I've been a Brisbane boy my whole life, so I'm very familiar with the kind of the ins and outs of the different areas and stuff. So okay, because then you came to Brisbane, and then when did you decide you were going to come to film school here at Griffith?
Film school.
Was that straight away after, or was it kind of
doing a few odd jobs, full-time jobs, and just trying to figure out what's going on? And I don't know, went to a few uni open days and was like, so don't really know what I wanted to do, but something in the creative industry. And it was kind of just a bit of a leap of faith of I was just wanting to do something, and kind of just film school.
Express your creative side.
Not I wanted to be making movies all the time. Didn't want to be like a full-time director, or I wasn't interested in it that much. I do love movies, but that wasn't my main interest. It was mainly just acquiring skills and meeting people and learning stuff. And it was kind of just needed to just do something. Yeah, get the ball rolling almost.
Yeah, it's a great way to kind of expand your knowledge and learn new things. And I think film school is a great way of doing that because it's like a very tactile, physical labor type thing. Yeah. It's not like accounting or something where you're kind of stuck behind a computer or anything like that. So from that respect, I actually really like kind of being creatively engaged and physically doing stuff and keeping yourself on the move and always energized and stuff, especially when you're working with people who are also feed off your same vibe, and you can kind of work together in a really fun environment and then make something really cool at the end of it. So
we're definitely always active. Definitely always doing stuff. And there were some theory aspects, but it was mainly practical, which,
And the theory aspects were never my favorite. I always preferred to be actually physically doing stuff at film school. That's why I came to film school. I wanted to learn how to make movies. I didn't want to sit in a classroom thinking, right, so this is how a movie makes its way to the big screen. I'm like, yes, this is important, and I understand why it's relevant, but it's always the least interesting parts of a filmmaking course, if you know what I mean. So, what were your thoughts of the film school experience, and did you enjoy yourself while you were there for the 3 or so years?
Yeah, except for the last year, which was COVID affected.
Yeah, during 2020. Yeah,
that was a bit frustrating. It kind of felt like we were robbed of a certain aspect of a communal aspect of film school. We were it felt like a shell of itself, not being able to come in here and do the things that we were doing for the previous 2 years, which was most of the time just hanging out at school. That was some of the most enjoyable parts. And then the end of the year, which kind of came back to normal, was pretty fun. Yeah, but I feel like we missed out on a certain amount of interacting with people that are, your friends from the last 2 years. But I'd say the first year you're just kind of getting your bearings. You're just figuring out what's happening, what's going on. You're a bit nervous. You're a bit I'm not sure who my friends are going to be.
Kind of finding your footing sort of thing.
Yeah. Everyone's like, I think every week it was like, so no, these are my friends. And then, no, these are my friends. And then you realize that you should stop worrying about that and just worry about the assignments.
Yeah.
And it'll just naturally kind of happen. Like who you gravitate to will be your friends.
I actually had a kind of a similar experience because, like I feel in first year, second year and third year, I kind of had distinct people that I was kind of surrounded with constantly. Yeah. And I felt like that was also a result of the courses and the types of assessment I was doing. And one of the things that I am so grateful for was the classes that I did that were so team-based and so teamwork orientated, such as like TV, studio, and outside broadcast. Those type of classes where you have a full group of people who are all striving towards one goal. And they've all got their own individual roles and responsibilities. But I felt like just working in that environment was so much more enjoyable because you'll actually have like sort of a camaraderie moving in towards a project together, as opposed to like one of those other like uni assessments where it's like 3 or 4 people and you kind of just have to get this done in order to submit it for a grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah. People complain about group assignments when they're in like an accounting degree. They're like, oh, I hate group assignments. I have to do one a semester. I'm like, I have to do one every week.
Yeah, exactly.
Like our entire course is one big group assignment. So, but that was good. That's probably one area that has translated into a real world application.
I agree. Yeah.
Being able to deal with people that you don't like, or just being able to be genuine with people that you do.
Yeah, and work with people who, you might not necessarily get along with, but also can still work together in a productive manner. Yeah. I think that's very important because, like even through my time at film school, there's a few like interesting characters, I think we would both agree.
Interesting.
And sometimes it's like not ideal and, sometimes you'll come across some people who don't pull their weight or don't, contribute as much as others. But, that's where you kind of just have to, pull yourself up and be like, all right, well, we need to get this done in order to reach XYZ deadline or accomplish this goal. Yeah. And, if assuming the majority of people are also in that same mindset, then you're going to get a good result at the end of it. And I feel like for grad slate, our big year where we kind of had this big production behind us and most of us chose to make short films. In your case, you were working on kind of a comedic satire television type pilot for a web series, right? Yeah. And you were the director of photography for that. So do you want to just kind of tell us a little bit about what it was like working in a show that had kind of a 3-camera setup?
Well, we didn't really have to worry about like locations, which was good, which is one thing I was happy about. We didn't have to worry about weather. We didn't have to, because it was all in a studio. We didn't really have to worry about a lot of things that people would have to worry about in a place that is exposed to the elements, and I think that took a lot of stress off it, but also having to think about more than one camera was kind of tough because a lot of the time we had more than one camera shooting each different scene.
Because you've got to think about like the coverage, right? Not only where the actors are, but then how the camera captures those moments.
Yeah. It was like a lot of planning went into it, but then also we had to be a bit flexible because sometimes it didn't work out. Like you'd plan something and you'd get to it on the day and you'd be like, oh, this actually doesn't work. So I'm just going to ditch the second one and just use this one camera. And, we had issues with one camera and like slow motion, like one of the cameras wouldn't do a certain frame rate.
Oh, okay.
So it was like we had to use a different camera, which was a lesser camera than we wanted to use, and so we had to grade it differently, and those kind of challenges pop up because you're not just using the one camera. But no, I think it turned out well.
We should make it known to people who don't already know that the project that you worked on was called Apocalyptico. It's actually a web series that is able to be found and seen on YouTube. So I might actually link it below for those who are interested in checking it out. Because it's like a kind of a comedic satire type series that kind of focuses on this one guy, his like robot friend and like a zombie as well. So it's like kind of a weird, wacky concept. And it was quite entertaining to see. So I definitely recommend checking it out if you wanted to see what the Griffith graduates got up to in 2020.
Shout out Elliot and Matthew Fu.
Yeah, they did some really good stuff on that project, and they worked really hard, especially with Matthew, who was caught overseas and wasn't able to easily get back into Australia as a result of that with all the COVID stuff. So it was an interesting last year, but we got through it, and thankfully all the projects came together and were quite enjoyable as a result. So obviously, one of the things I did last year, though, was I worked on outside broadcast, which is a course that basically is you go out on location and you film a sport and you kind of bring that all together and to deliver it as like a live stream. I think we did ours on YouTube. But yeah, for our class, we filmed a netball game for the Griffith Social Sports, and I did that class, and I was a camera operator for that. And I, throughout my time at film school, was always interested in movie making. That was kind of my drive. I wanted to get into movies and kind of learn about how that is made, because that was my passion. I love movies. I love watching shows. And then through it was actually in another class, Dean Churcott mentioned something about working in sport with the Brisbane Lions and stuff. And that was, to me, just a light bulb moment. I was just like, hey, I like sport. I like filmmaking. Why don't I combine those two and do that as a career? So that's when I then pursued outside broadcast as a class, and then I did some TV and studio type stuff. And like I mentioned, I really enjoyed that kind of teamwork environment. And then after doing outside broadcast, that's when I kind of, was like, all right, I really enjoy this. I like working on a camera. I love being in a sporting environment with a crowd and, the chaos that is these, great athletes doing whatever they're doing. And I was like, this is what I want to do. So I'm going to pursue this and hopefully make it in the sport broadcasting industry. And I feel very fortunate. I've been able to pick up a few different gigs working for a few different companies here and there. And you have been very similar. You've also managed to weave yourself into the sport broadcasting world. And I obviously work on a camera, and you do a bit of a mixture of different things. So what about sport broadcasting was it that kind of was your draw?
I would say that I didn't figure that out at film school. I always wanted to do it even before film school. I don't know, it was always interesting to me even before coming to film school. So film school wasn't exactly, I wasn't focused on like, I need to make this movie the best that it's ever done because it's going to go on my show reel because I'm going to try and make more movies in the future. I was more focused on just getting the skills that you need that are applicable from movies, like camera handling, cable wrangling, stuff like that. Just
the important stuff.
Just like the actual physical skills that are transferable to be able to do that. And I did outside broadcast and tried to do everything that I could do with the year before you, with netball, with Michael Boy, and Jack, who was amazing. And we kind of, we had a really good class, and our teacher was really good. So we kind of made a lot of connections, and then we did like the live studio show, and I got to go on a bit of a few days of work experience with NEP at Suncorp, and I was like, this is pretty cool. And so I kind of finished film school and just kind of kept badgering one of the ladies at NEP and just kind of banging on their door and being like, oi, let me in. And so eventually kind of got on a few unpaid gigs, and then took a while, but I've done 10 plus game days as camera assistant or cable hand.
That's great.
Rigging the cameras on ranging from netball to basketball to rugby union, stuff like that. So it's fun, but it's like hard. It's definitely hard work and long days. It basically takes up your entire day, and it's late night, and it's one of the few jobs where you don't do much for the first 7-8 hours, and then you're all systems go for the last 3. So at the times when you're the most tired, you're the most active. So it's a bit different. Like I don't know if everyone could deal with it, because it's so different.
It takes a certain mentality.
It definitely. But no, you just kind of slip into it. And But I would also say that it's not like the be all and end all. There's definitely so much more than just working for like Channel 9 or Fox Sports, or there's so many, especially with live streaming being so big now, there's so many different production companies that are doing things that are like well paying. There's lots of opportunities, stuff like that. It's more than just, you don't have to strive to be, working for Fox Sports or Channel 9 all the time, because there's a lot of competition. So unless you're really, really, really good and you've been there for a long time, you're not going to get as regular work as you'd like. And that kind of led me to pursue other things like other companies like Red Corner. Shout out to Brian and Andrew and Ross and other companies like that, and just doing a lot of live streaming stuff, and probably learnt so much more doing that than just sitting around, observing, because I feel like I'd learn more by doing than observing.
I echo those sentiments because I feel like when you're out on location and you're physically doing stuff, it's such a much better way to learn, because it's like you can get told how to do this sort of thing in a classroom and say, all right, this is how, you connect X together with B, and then C goes over here with Y. It's just like you can learn it like from an intellectual level, but actually physically doing it and then memorizing it and then getting into a rhythm so that you can kind of get into a flow when you're in that work environment, I think is so much more beneficial. And that's why I think work experience and sort of internships and any sort of opportunities like that. Yeah. And especially for people our age and who are going through this university system, getting that unpaid work and as we like to joke, getting that exposure is sometimes not the best, because it's like you're putting your name and you're putting yourself out there and you're not getting a guaranteed result as it at the end of it potentially. But I feel, at least in my experience, the stuff that I've done work experience-wise has always been really beneficial for me, because it's not only led to future opportunities and sometimes even employment opportunities, which has been I'm very grateful for, but it's also just the little things you learn along the way is very, very beneficial, I think, especially long-term, because it's like, all right, I know this didn't work this time, so I can't do that the next time. I need to do this differently so that I can be quicker, getting this ready to go, and that sort of thing. And I feel like that's very important, and you can't necessarily learn those skills in a classroom, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that, it's so much more that you learn by doing, just mainly like troubleshooting, because they can tell you what it should be when everything's going right, but it rarely ever goes perfect. So like you've got to be able to mainly just fix it when it's going wrong. That's when you really earn your money, is when, because if anyone could just rock up, plug a few things in, turn things on, then almost anyone could do it. But it doesn't always work like that. Rarely ever works like that. You've got to troubleshoot and be able to fix things. And it's more like piecing a lot of puzzle pieces together to make a broadcast. And so I know some people, they look at big trucks with all the wires going everywhere. They're like, I don't understand any of it.
I don't understand it. It just looks way too confusing.
Yeah, but I'm kind of slowly getting to the point of like, okay, so that it's looking less daunting, because once you start setting it up and knowing where everything goes, and it just takes time. So
that's very important, is losing that sort of intimidation factor, because I remember in some of my early gigs, walking onto these locations and seeing all these cables and all this equipment that's going everywhere, and you think, how do people remember how to keep this thing afloat? But you realize when you kind of either compartmentalize your specific role, or when you're working with people who have a great mindset and know what they're doing in order to get ABC, XYZ done, then I think it just flows so very well.
And I think do your part.
Exactly. And if everyone's doing their part at 100%, then the team will work at 100%. And I feel like troubleshooting, like you mentioned, is a great skill set to have. And I agree. It's very important.
Yeah, true. And it's kind of like the sports that you're broadcasting, they have teams, and everyone in the team that are playing the game has got to do their part well. And when you're broadcasting, you're a part of another team. So it's like, it's kind of enjoyable that way, where you're not always out there by yourself. Because that can be a bit intimidating when something goes wrong. But it's fun. It's especially now with a lot of events being cancelled or up in the air when things seem potentially dicey, like with any cases or anything. It's like, oh my gosh, is this going to get cancelled? Is this, you're the day before and you're sweating on an event because it's like, oh, is it going to get cancelled? Is it going to, are you going to, because your work is tied up in that, your livelihood. And so,
especially when you work freelance.
Yeah.
Which a lot of us do.
Yeah. So you're not guaranteed, even when you get booked on a job these days, it's not guaranteed because far out.
And you don't necessarily get the benefits of like sort of a part-time or full-time employment where you can kind of get like paid leave or any of that sort of stuff. So when you work freelance, it's there's a lot of uncertainty.
Yeah.
And another thing with working in sport is that most sport is done on Friday nights or a weekend. So
Friday night, Saturdays, Sundays.
Yeah, so that's where most of your work is done. So that's where the majority of your income is made usually.
Yeah.
And not only is scheduling difficult because you've got to obviously manage all the different kind of sports that you want to do and the different locations that you need to be at.
Yeah.
But also you need to make sure that, when stuff does fall through, that you can kind of find a backup if you can. And that's sometimes quite difficult. And that's one of the things, obviously, this is my first year kind of working in the industry and kind of finding my footing and learning new ways of how to overcome these sort of challenges, especially in this COVID world, which is so unpredictable in the most annoying of ways. But I feel like maybe it might be beneficial in the long run, kind of learning these things now as opposed to later in life.
Starting at the hardest point, the most volatile point. Although we have been a lot less affected in Queensland compared to Victoria and New South Wales, because like if you were trying to make it there, you would be so
You'd
far
be
behind.
spewing. Absolutely,
You'd be so far behind. But like, I feel like we'd be a lot further along without this, obviously.
Well, a company that is Victorian based is a company called Sportscast Australia, and they predominantly do a lot of cricket and stuff in the Victorian area and some AFL and all that. But obviously, because of the COVID situation and a lot of the lockdowns and restrictions over there, it's very difficult to get consistency with kind of a schedule and work and all that. So they're obviously trying to expand, and they're obviously trying to expand in Queensland as well. So little things like that is obviously beneficial for us because we kind of can get more work as a result of that, because we are handling the COVID situation arguably the best of a lot of the other states. But obviously another thing as well is that Australia is kind of in this delusion of like, we can just eliminate COVID here. No, and it's you're dreaming if you think that's going to happen.
Can't.
Like, I remember in the Northern Territory, I think Darwin had one case and they shut everything down. And I'm like, I understand because it can spread so quickly, but it's like, it's just, you're causing an inconvenience for something that is just, it's not necessarily closing down borders and cities for a virus that isn't necessarily going to like cause a huge, large-scale problem for everyone. And I'm not obviously discounting the severity of the virus, and I understand it's a very it can cause a lot of problems for a lot of people. But when you look at the statistics, the reality is 99% of people who get COVID recover from it.
That's true, and I think that we're at a point now of, we know, A, what happens when you get it. B, a lot of people are vaccinated and more people are getting vaccinated. C, the financial costs are starting to really, really rack up with people.
Especially
with
for the
companies,
Victorians,
especially for those people. Like, I think the way, like, money doesn't grow on trees. Money doesn't grow on trees. Opportunities don't grow on trees. And unfortunately, your days are numbered on Earth, where every day that you're stuck in this state of being in a lockdown or being in a state of not being able to go anywhere or do anything because you've got restrictions on you and your movements and lifestyle, that's a day that's wasted. And I think that a lot of people are at a point of, I'm just going to try and keep living my life, because unfortunately, you could get hit by a car tomorrow. You could we take our lives into our hands by living every single day. We take public transport. We it's just things that happen every day that, are dangerous, but we're just accustomed to them, like driving, stuff like that.
Yeah. I'll say there's so many car accidents and so many deaths on the road. And I don't see road closures all the time.
No, and it's like I think, well, especially I am past the point of wanting to lock down for one case or two cases because it might spread purely because of the ramifications of it in the long term. Like, I think we're going to be feeling this for years, if not decades, to come after this. Not only the financial costs, like how much I think tax hikes will be coming, like tax raises, like, because how are we going to pay off the debts that we've incurred over this time? And I think we've got to figure out I know human lives are immeasurable. You can't put a cost on a human life, but also how many other lives are being affected by prioritizing this.
No one wants to talk about the increase in depression, anxiety, and suicides as a result of these lockdowns. The effect on students, on kids who are at a very vulnerable age, like 18-year-olds who are in their 17, 18-year-olds in their final year of year 12 who are, incredibly stressed already. They'd be stressed already if it wasn't for this, but now they have to do a lot of their stuff from home. And a lot of people just do not enjoy that online learning. I certainly didn't. So I can imagine even for people of that age in that sort of schooling environment would be even worse.
Yeah. It's so the effects I don't think we're going to be knowing the full effects until years and years in the future, because at some point most people will be vaccinated and we kind of, it won't go away, but it will become less of an issue, but we'll still be dealing with the results of it, like the repercussions, I should say.
Yeah, I agree.
And just like the toll on just relationships of people. Like, I can't imagine, I don't want to imagine what it's like for people in New South Wales right now. Like, how hard it must have been. They've been in lockdown for like 3 months now. That's just insane. Like, you can't, like 3 straight months, and it's like you just see videos of police checking people's IDs before they go into the supermarket to make sure that they haven't been to the supermarket before and during the day, or they live in the same area. Just like the control that the police and the government has now is it's a bit scary. I'm not a full-on conspiracy theorist, but it's
I think it's a slippery slope.
It's a very slippery slope in terms of what's happening now.
Because I'll give you a great example, right? So last year when we had that terrible thing that happened to George Floyd, and we had, as a result of that, the Black Lives Matter resurgence and the movement and stuff, and the riots and protests that happened in America, and the destruction and anarchy that was caused from that. And I used to look at that on the news and on social media and think, like, wow, I can't believe these people would do that and cause all this violence and stuff in the name of this movement, which is obviously very important. But I was like, I can't believe that is happening over there. I'm so glad that nothing like that would ever happen here in Australia. And then in the last couple of days, especially in the last couple of weeks, we've seen, with Victoria and, the Victorian Premier, Dan Andrews, basically, ruling with an iron fist and being like, nah, you can't do this, you can't do that, stay in your homes, get vaccinated, otherwise you can't work. And people are like, hey, stop controlling my life 100%. I want to be able to do what I want to do. And obviously, human safety is of paramount. It's very important, but at the same time, you can't control people, because then you're just going to rebel as a result of that. And Victoria has seen the consequences of that because of the way they've dealt with things. And I was seeing that on the news, all the stuff and the protests that happened in Victoria, and just being like, wow, I can't believe it's happening here.
And that's as a result said that they can't. They're not going to. If you don't get vaccinated, they're not going to treat you in hospital. If you come in and you're like, if you've got either COVID or you've got another illness but you're not vaccinated, they're not going to treat you. Like, that's like a basic human right that men and women have died for in wars, to be able to have that in Australia, in a free Western society, in a democratic society, that is being stripped away because of some virus. It's, I think a lot of people assume the best in people, and I'm not saying that they're out for full-on totalitarian dictatorships, but power corrupts. Power is a very dangerous thing. Power can make people do some pretty crazy things, and without any balances, like, yes, we could likely get, like, vote Dan Andrews out or whatever, but that's like a year or two in the future. It's not right now. Yeah, it's kind of scary, and I don't think it's full on like 1984. Like we're not quite in that scope, but it's like, at what point do you stop? Like, at first of all, it was just 15 days to flatten the curve. We want to flatten the curve.
Do you remember those days?
We want to flatten the
So
curve.
long ago.
We want to bring it down. We want to stop our hospitals being overrun. And then we're trying to eliminate people coming in from overseas, and then we're shutting our borders, hard borders. And then when they introduce check-ins, like, you've got to know where you've been at all times, all the time. Every shop literally has it. Every shop, even the other day at Riverfire, there were signs. There were like QR codes to scan of just being out in public, in the open, fresh air, out in public when everyone's wearing masks. And then they introduced like mask orders and introducing all this stuff when the death rates, even if there is any, or infection rates just keep going down and down and down, especially in Queensland. They keep going down and down and down, and yet they're introducing more restrictions, like more, you've got to do this, and now they're introducing mandatory vaccinations for construction workers or healthcare workers, teachers, people in the aviation industry have to be vaccinated, and all these things just keeps stacking up and keeps building up, and it's like at what point will they stop? Like, at what point will the check-in thing go away? Like, what point? And they said 70% vaccination, we won't do lockdowns anymore. Then they might shift it over, saying, oh no, it's now 85%, and now soon enough,
it's always a sliding scale.
Soon enough, you won't be able to go places if you're not vaccinated. Like, you literally won't be able. They'll have. I believe that they'll have signs in stores or at sporting events. Cricket Australia. You're not allowed to go to the cricket if you're not vaccinated. You're not even allowed to go into the crowd, especially if you're working there. If you're working for Cricket Australia or in the broadcast, I found this out from NEP. You're not allowed to work unless you're vaccinated.
Wow.
And so the freedom of choice is something that it's been taken disappearing.
Away. Well, because you know what's really scary is that because this idea that the government can't force this sort of vaccination mandate, and because a lot of people would push back against that because it's so obvious that the government is forcing you to do something.
Yeah.
But the sneaky way that they might do it, and I think that they already are, is that they're telling the employers and telling companies that if your employees aren't vaccinated, they can't work. And I think it's a very sneaky and dangerous way of doing things because it's like, obviously, let's state for the record, neither of us are anti-vax. We obviously believe in vaccinations.
If you want to get vaccinated, I don't care. Go do it.
Yeah.
Like, you can do it. I might in the future if I see no more no side effects or anything, or if I have to for some sort of travel reason, like if I want to go overseas, which I understand because it's much worse overseas. I don't know, like, but still, like, I wouldn't kind of just do it just because someone's telling me to do it. That's the main point.
That's the bottom
when someone's
line.
forcing you to do something and it's not coming from your own free will, then we're in trouble.
Because my simple perspective on it is, I think, the government should obviously pay for these vaccines, and they should provide them to the public and say, this is what we recommend you do. This is what you need to do if you want to stay safe, especially if you're the at-risk categories. And I think that should be it. I don't think they should force it upon people because, obviously, especially in this modern world where we have so much fake news and conspiracies out there, it's so hard to get the truth. And, with the reality is that most people who get COVID recover from it, and yes, there are some people who have very bad side effects and have bad reactions to it, but I don't think we should be moving to our slowest person. I think we should just be moving with the majority. And
there's people who get medication from the pharmacist who have bad side effects. There's people who have, you see the list of side effects from just any sort of drug that is from the pharmacy. You look on the list and it's kind of scary. It's like, oh, you mean I might have blood coming out of my eyes, something like that. Like you take a risk with taking those medications. You take a risk with anything a lot of the time. Like nothing's guaranteed in life, and I don't think that taking something just because someone told me to do it is a good thing. Like I'm kind of skeptical about that. I don't know. I think it's coming from my family. Is my dad is very skeptical about things, and I think that assuming the best and that people always want the best for you and there's no ulterior motives is not a very good thing. I think that people are. This is coming from a more Christian perspective. Is that people are born sinful. People aren't. You don't have to tell kids how to be bad. You don't have to tell people how to do the wrong thing. So I think that nature is always in people, and to be able to say this is good, like to tell them to do something good is harder than telling them to do something bad, and like that can sometimes creep in, like what I was saying before, with power corrupting people. And I think that a lot of people believe that there's always good in someone. I don't necessarily believe that every single person has the best intentions for every other person in life, which is unfortunate, but I think it's a reality. Heavy.
I agree. Yeah,
heavy.
No, that is heavy. I agree. But I'll say, I think we'll leave it there. I think we've covered all our bases. Two quick things I wanted to ask you before we went on the rabbit hole of the COVID was with regards to sport broadcasting. What do you think are some of the pros and cons of working in sport broadcasting?
Pros or cons first?
Dealer's choice. You choose.
Pros, I would say you get to be in a practical environment. You get to be outside, but then there's times where you're inside as well. There's no two gigs are the same. There's always different challenges. There's always different things to deal with. It's a lot of problem solving. If you have an active mind and trying to figure things out, that's definitely a good place to be. There's, decent amount of money in it as well. The cons, I would say that it's long days, long hours. It's not guaranteed. But a pro is that if you work hard enough, you can get almost anywhere and do almost anything. There's no real place to stop in terms of advancing up the ladder. You can just keep doing it, and you can always move into different areas as well. That's another pro. A con is that it's so fickle in terms of COVID, events being cancelled. What else?
Or I can add two ones.
Two cons?
No, a pro and a con.
All right.
So one pro, I would say, is that it's a lot. I would say it's a lot easier to fall into what you want to do in sport than it is in movie making, for example.
Yes.
So just to use a very basic and easy example, if you wanted to be a camera operator in movies, very difficult.
Yeah.
Because you got to climb the ladder, you got to be a cable wrangler or a runner or assistant, then camera assistant, and then first AC, and then second AC, and then maybe you might become a camera operator or a DOP one day.
Yeah.
But with sport, very easy to kind of, if that's what you want to do and you're good at it, very important, if you're good at it, you'll get work.
Yeah.
So from that perspective, I think it's a con for the sports side is you kind of can easily slot into the specific area that you want to a little bit easier than movie making. But the con that I would address, and I suffered from this recently, is obviously if you're working outside, it's very easy to get sunburnt. As you can see, I'm a little bit sunburnt from my gigs in the recent times. So that would be the con that I would say as well.
The Murray got you.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good pro. What was the con you were going to say?
Sunscreen.
Sunscreen. Oh, that was the sunscreen.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say that the tan that you get.
Oh, I don't tan. That's the problem. I friggin' burn and then I peel and then I reset to factory settings. So it's terrible. Anyway, but do you have any advice for people who might want to get into sport broadcasting or have an interest in that area and field? Do you have any advice for them?
Don't be afraid to like start doing anything, because you'll eventually will kind of, like you said, kind of fall into what you want. Like you can start off doing audio and then just wriggle your way into being a camera operator. You've just got to kind of start at the low, like a lower level, because you've got to prove yourself before you can go and do a bigger thing. Which actually, that's what I was going to say. The point before with the pro is that, say you want to be a DOP, and you could be one, but you have to be on a very low budgeted independent film where there's not really much money or guarantee of any return. Whereas you could do a camera on a schoolboy rugby game and get paid like a fair amount of money.
Decent amount, yeah.
Yeah, and you'd get this almost the same as being a camera operator for an NRL game. But you're massively different exposure levels, but you're still getting paid for it. So that's purely from a money perspective. I would say that's a good pro. Like there's money to be made, especially with live streaming now.
And the other good thing as well is living here in Australia, especially a sporting nation where there is so many sporting opportunities. You got AFL, NRL, soccer, cricket, basketball. So many opportunities for sport.
And everyone wants to
there's
just watch
plenty,
sport.
plenty of opportunities to work.
Yeah, I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say that there's lots of. You just have a camera, a tripod, and stream it, and people watch it. People love watching their kids play sport, so
especially in this new COVID world where people aren't as easily able to get out and potentially watch their kids or their family members play. So it's definitely very important to be able to provide services like that. And like you said, there's opportunities and money to be made. So if you're interested in working in sport broadcasting, hopefully you can kind of take something away from that, because I think those were all very valuable tips and advice. So. Now, the next thing I want to kind of drive into is the AFL season that we've kind of just seen wrap up in the last couple of days. For those who don't know, I'm a big AFL fan. So are you, Harry. Obviously, big Lions, Brisbane Lions fans as well. And I watched them go throughout this season. It was a very up and down season. The Lions went through some good patches, and then we lost our momentum and had some bad injuries along the way as well.
Very bad injuries.
Eric Hipwood and just lots of bad injuries. Cam Rayner at the very start of the season. So,
gosh, imagine where we'd be if we had him and Hipwood far out.
It would have been a very different season, I feel like, because the Brisbane is a team on the rise, and we've proved ourselves. But we just can't get over that final hurdle of making it all the way. And I think it's coming soon. Do you agree?
I hope so, because I think you'd like to see a return for investment, emotional investment, because I think there's not much worse than having such a big build-up where you've seen it go from being bottom of the ladder, from being a terrible team, losing by 100 points, just really struggling for attendance, for membership, for everything, and then slowly getting up there, getting a bigger team, a better team, a younger team, and growing those players, and then getting a few good
getting an experienced coach as well.
Getting an experienced coach, just the building the foundation the right way, building it up, and then making the top four, and then making the finals, and then making the prelim final, and then losing in the finals. It's
such a deflating feeling.
But also I think you've got to be patient too. Our players, a lot of our good players are still very young, and a lot of the good players are still in their prime. Like Daniel Rich, Jared Lyons,
Lachie Neale,
Zorko, Lachie Neale, players like Jet Danaher now, Harris Andrews. He's still young. It doesn't feel like he's young. That's because he's been in the team.
He's such a huge unit.
He's been in the team for 5 years now, but he's only 22, 23.
That's pretty crazy.
And same with McCluggage, players like that.
The horizon is
it's still
really
there.
bright.
It's not just because we've lost in the finals the last 3 years that everything's over, which is good, because it could be for some teams. Some teams might see 3 years in a row losing and they'd be like, oh, it's over. Just blow the team up. tank or whatever.
Or get a new coach.
Get a new coach, or they need to change something. But a lot of the time, it's just a bounce of the ball. It's just a bounce. Like, it honestly is just a bounce. Like,
especially in this game.
Say if we won that game against Geelong at the start of the year, when the holding the ball in the pocket should have been called our way.
Yeah.
We might have finished a spot higher. We might have been able to rest some players and not get injured. We might have been able to play a different opponent at a different time instead of playing the Bulldogs, which were, one of the hottest teams in the league, and we just pipped them to have, to finish fourth.
Yeah, they were on a great momentum run because they just had a dip in form at the end of the season and came into finals just bursting out of the blocks.
Imagine if we played Geelong in the finals and they were on a downward slope and we beat them and we made the prelim. I mean, there's so many things that could have happened. So I think that you don't need to change anything if it's just because you lose at a critical point. I think so many other things and so many teams are good. Like, there's not like... on another day, I think Bulldogs could have beaten Demons in the grand final. On another day, you could have seen a completely different result. So it's just whatever happens, it's not guaranteed. So I think that it's good to stick with the players you've got and like continuity. Yeah, I think that I think it's definitely still a window there for at least another 2 years, if not 3. Yeah, if we just get some more, I don't know if we need more. We just need more luck. I think.
I agree.
There's a lot of luck that it's involved.
Well, something that I want to add on to what you were saying, and I find this quite interesting, is that the last 3 years that we've made the finals, the teams that we've come up against were always the teams that made it all the way. So in 3 years ago, it was Richmond and GWS. We lost.
Yeah.
And they ended up being in the grand final.
Yeah.
And then the year after, 2020, was... we beat Richmond.
Yeah.
And then we lost to Geelong, and they both made it into the grand final. And then this year, we lost to Melbourne, and then we lost to the Dogs, and they both made it to the grand final.
And it was pretty close with the Dogs as well, wasn't it?
It was.
It wasn't like we only just got beat. Like, it wasn't like we got thrashed. I don't even think we ever got thrashed this year.
Well, Melbourne breezed past us in the quarterfinal.
True. Anyway.
But, like, we've always put up a fight, I
think that we've always put up a decent fight. So,
and that's the good thing that is promising for Brisbane, I feel like, is that they are a great team on the rise with a lot of young kids, and the more experienced players that we do have, like you said, in their prime. So I'm very confident with the trajectory that we're going on, and there's nothing more I want to see in this world than Dane Zorko and Chris Fagan lift that damn trophy.
Yeah.
Nothing more I want to see in the world.
I think...
Especially for Fags. He's such a great coach and has brought such a great culture to the club. And I just love everything about him. Yeah. And I really want to see some reward for him.
It's a very even season now. Like, for the last maybe 4 years, because of how dominant Richmond were, it was kind of like, there's no one else that's really going to win it. But now you've got at least 4 teams, if not 5, that you could see winning the whole thing.
Well, that's why I love watching the AFL, because it is such a consistently competitive competition. You know, like I remember a couple of years ago, West Coast finished bottom of the table. The very next year, they made it to the preliminary final.
Yeah.
So, like, it's so easy to go from these drastic switches of, a team that's outperforming to then make it into the top 8 or, even make it all the way sometimes. And, over the last 2 decades, we've seen dynasties. We obviously saw in the early 2000s the Brisbane dynasty with 2001 all the way to 2004 making it to the grand final. The three-peat, obviously. And then we saw, a great consistent run from Geelong this last 15 or so years. And then most recently, we've obviously seen Richmond. And before them was Hawthorn. So there's been dynasties here and there, but the way that the competition is always flowing up and down, there's always a competitive aspect to it, is why I enjoy watching it and why I think it's very entertaining.
See Gold Coast, there's always a chance. Like, don't give up. Don't give up the Suns, because... although you might have had some rough years, you might be able to sneak into the finals next year. Or...
if they get Matt Rowell healthy and fit, he's going to be a weapon for sure.
Yeah.
So, obviously, you didn't get a chance to watch the grand final live because you were working in sport.
Yeah, that's another thing. For all the people who want to maybe work in sport, you've got to consider that you might have to give up a fair few of your Saturday nights and your Friday nights and Sunday mornings. And if you're someone who likes to go out clubbing, which I am not, you might want to reconsider something like that.
Or if you're a big fan of a club or a sport or something, and you might have to miss... because that was the big thing I struggled with, is that Working in sport, I'm not always able to watch the Brisbane Lions play live, which is sometimes disappointing. But, like it is what it is, and I'm not going to complain about it. But that's also, yes, I agree, another thing to consider.
But then again, I'm a big NFL fan, baseball fan, and basketball, and those games in America, they get played at times that are very good for someone who works on the weekends. There's someone, they're always in the morning, especially like Monday mornings and during the week mornings. So, yeah, it's kind of you give and take. Because if I had a regular 9-to-5 job, I wouldn't be able to watch any of those games. So,
Yeah, there's a balance you can strike there.
Yeah.
But yeah, the grand final itself, I'll just express my initial thoughts. I thought the PreGame Entertainment, did you watch that as well?
No.
Okay.
When I watched it on replay, it literally just went straight to the first bounce.
Did it?
Yeah, well, who was the actual entertainment?
I'm sure you'd be able to find it online or something. But I thought the PreGame Entertainment was superb. I thought it was really, really good. The way the sunset over Optus Stadium in Perth, first time it's ever been played there as well. And I think Optus Stadium is probably it's the best stadium in Australia for sure.
Right.
And just the way they used the lighting, and I thought the music choices were really good. They had a few different bands. So they had, I don't remember all of them off the top of my head, but they had a lot of big Australian people in there and some classic songs and all that. So I loved it all. It was really well done. However, the halftime show, did you see that?
No.
I didn't like the halftime show.
Who was it?
It was someone, the band, something in Tokyo.
Birds of Tokyo.
Birds of Tokyo.
They're a Perth band.
The Perth band, yeah.
You didn't like them?
Their music's okay, but just live...
Sporting events, live TV.
It was bad.
It's live TV music broadcasts are terrible. You don't get the sound right. There's always a bit of an echo.
I just thought the vibe was just wrong. It just... When you go into a sport, especially a grand final or a Super Bowl or whatever, you want to have upbeat, energetic, fast-paced, adrenaline-pumping music. And when you have these kind of slow and casual songs, it's just no. Because I was very fortunate to go to the...
But they're limited. Sorry.
I was very fortunate to go to the 2020 AFL Grand Final that was played here in Brisbane at the Gabba, and they had Shepherd play, the Brisbane-based band, play for the halftime show, and they were fantastic because they're upbeat, great music, and the visual display they had was phenomenal. This year just was a big misfire in my opinion.
Right. Yeah. It's a tough one because they're limited. They can't get overseas acts to come here.
And I think it's actually great that they tried to use the local artists that they've got at their disposal. I actually like that as an idea.
Yeah.
However, even though it's a good idea, the end result was not good in my opinion. So.
Right. Well, that's the AFL season done. That's it. That's as quick as it starts. It seems like it's as quick as it finishes. What
did you think about the game itself, though? Did you think Melbourne were a worthy winner?
Yeah. They just had the best players. They're just kind of a force that couldn't be stopped at the end there.
Because they both have kind of similar play styles, the Dogs and the
they're very
Demons.
similar.
Because they're both very fast-flowing, attack-orientated football on the counter. And I was of the opinion coming into the game that it's whoever has the best defence will win the game.
Yeah.
And I felt the Demons stopped the Dogs more than the other way around. And Melbourne were able to capitalise and kick goals consecutively. And Christian Petrarca got a record high 39 disposals, 2 goals, and of course the Norm Smith medal. And obviously Melbourne, stopped that very long drought of winning a grand final. So I think coming into the game as a neutral, I didn't really care who won. I just wanted to see a good game. And I'm of the opinion that if a team gets smashed in a grand final, I instantly lose respect for you. I've lost all respect for GWS even after the 2019 grand final defeat to Richmond. And even Port Adelaide in 2007, they got smashed by Geelong. And it's taken them, almost 15 years to gain a little bit of respect out of me. So that's my opinion, though.
Okay.
But even though the Bulldogs got smashed, I still was thoroughly entertained by the game. And I think that Melbourne were the better team on the day. But, I think it was still an enjoyable game, even though it was kind of a blowout at the end.
Yeah. It tends to get a bit... not every game can be amazing, and so it tends to get a bit boring at the end, but like if you're the winning team, you love that.
Oh, of
because
course,
there would have been no stress for the Demons fans. They'd been like after three-quarter time,
Especially
they'd be like
kicking a goal on the final siren as
Yeah.
well. You know, you've got all your players around you. You hear that siren, you celebrate
Yeah.
together. Because another thing as well is if you're playing is regular, play style, and then the siren goes and you're all spread out across the field. It's
Yeah.
like you're gonna
Yeah.
find who's closest to you and celebrate, sort of
Yeah.
thing. But for them, it was a great moment because it was like they were all together. They got to huddle and have that sort of embrace at the end, and then
Yeah.
they kicked a goal on the siren as well to just add in the extra
Yeah.
celebration. So it was a really good game and a really good result for the Demons. I am satisfied with the end result, even though it was a blowout. And it'll be interesting to see if they can continue that form going into next year, because they were the only team that stayed. Well, yeah, they stayed top of the table for the entire season, and then even made it all the way to the grand final and won the damn thing. So
Yeah.
very, very impressive from the Demons, especially for a club that has struggled in recent times.
Yeah, I can still remember. Yeah, I still think of them as like team that can't quite get there, even though they have now.
Yeah, they've completely
There's just
changed
teams,
the mindset.
There's
now.
just teams that you just can't really like. I can't see Essendon, Carlton, ever getting to the point of being successful.
It'll be interesting.
People might have thought that about the Lions, although we did.
That's a
do
good
it,
point, yeah.
in the early 2000s. So I guess
It'll be interesting to see with Michael Voss, who is an ex-Lions player and coach, who's now taken on as coach of Carlton.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting to see if he can turn it around.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we will see. But yeah, those were our thoughts on the AFL season and grand final. Now I want to quickly transition into the English Premier League,
Yeah.
the soccer that's been going on. Football, yes, absolutely. I'll say, I remember going through high school and we always had rugby and football, but obviously here in Australia, lots of people refer to football as soccer, and it's football. It will always be football, and AFL will always be footy. I'll accept that.
I call 5 different sports football, so it just depends who you're talking to.
Exactly. It's who you're talking to, and I guess, the country that you originate from. If you're European and someone calls it soccer, it's like, oh, what the hell? Why
Yeah.
would you say that? But anyway, not only do we both support Brisbane, but we also both support the Chelsea Football Club.
Yeah.
And it's been a very interesting start to the season, and the English Premier League has never looked more competitive. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Maybe around when Manchester City started to become a power and Arsenal were good. But then again, Liverpool weren't good back then. So, yeah, I think it's probably maybe not the most competitive it's ever been, but it's definitely level with the most. Like, it's been this competitive before, but it hasn't been this competitive for a while, I'd say.
Yeah, because I think that when you look at the teams that are pushing for top four and that most people would predict to finish in top four, you look at Manchester City, Manchester United, Liverpool, and Chelsea. And you look at those teams and they're all, like, obviously they've all got their pros and cons, but I think it's a very even race. And I think potentially any four teams could win it.
Yeah.
I am of the opinion, I think whoever finishes above Chelsea will win the Premier League.
Yeah.
So in other words, I think Chelsea's going to win it.
Yeah, if they, I'd love to see it come down to like the last week or the last 2 weeks.
I hope so too.
Last few years, it's just been a runaway winner a lot of the time. It's just been like Man City taking it all the way, Liverpool almost undefeated. I'd like to see it really close, like really tight.
It makes the last couple of weeks far more interesting.
Yeah.
And it raises the stakes exponentially.
Yeah. It's one of the few times where I'd be okay. Like people say, oh, how can you not have finals? How can you not have postseason stuff? And I'm like, well, it's just as exciting sometimes. But then you have the Champions League, which Chelsea won, by the way.
Champions of Europe. We know what we are.
It's I think I would love that stat that we're the only team ever to win every major competition twice.
That's true, yeah.
2 Champions Leagues, 2 Europa Leagues, 2 FA Cup, 2 League Cup, 2 Premier Leagues. More than 2 Premier Leagues, but
that's
like
sick.
at least 2.
I never really thought about it, but yeah, you're right.
And you just look
That's
at
crazy.
all the money that Man City have put into getting a Champions League, all the money that PSG have and are still putting in to get a Champions League.
And they still haven't
They
got one.
still haven't got as many. Chelsea have got double the amount of Champions Leagues as Man City and PSG.
Funny. That is so funny.
Yeah.
Dude, this year's, even for the Champions League, it's going to be a tough race because City is always going to be competitive. I think PSG have completely changed their team,
Yeah.
and they've got a deadly, deadly unit.
Yeah.
Especially with the inclusion of Lionel Messi in that very depressing situation that was for Barcelona fans and him especially. But something else that happened in the Premier League was the return of Cristiano Ronaldo to Manchester United. What were your thoughts on that return?
Oh, it's a bit, I don't know, not predictable, but it's a good story. It's a good story. If I was a Man United fan, I'd be ecstatic, especially if I was my age and growing up with him already being in the team. But I hate Manchester United, so I don't really care for them. So I don't really find any joy in them getting a good player. So
No, I totally get it.
but it makes I mean, it's not like the Premier League was lacking in viewership. It's not like that we didn't have any good players, and now suddenly we've got, it's like kind of like the French league where, now we've got Messi, our league is legitimate. It's like,
No, it's not.
Ronaldo's just joining a whole set of the greatest players in the world.
And that's what the great thing that the Premier League, I think, has accomplished is now a draw for all these great players to come and play in this league, because not only is it really competitive, but also the quality of football is really, really high. This is why I love the Premier League, is that it's so, the results are never guaranteed. Like anyone can pop up and get a result. And this is why I love watching like Leeds United, because they're a team that is destined to be mid-table at best. But because they play such a attacking style of football, and because they're always out there to entertain the fans, they're going to get a lot of bad results as a result of that, but at least they're entertaining. And I respect them a lot for that, because it could, a lot of teams in the Premier League, like Burnley, for example, like to just park the bus, sit back, let the other team have the ball and say, all right, try and get past us. Yeah. And that is not entertaining to watch. Yeah. That's what Jose Mourinho got, criticised for a lot when he was at United or even at Tottenham. It was this kind of sit back, counter sort of strategy. And, it has its pros and cons depending on the players in the team. But, even when Thomas Tuchel came in and completely revolutionised Chelsea's squad, I think we both agree it's one of the most impressive transformations of a team in quick succession. Yeah,
that's true. Yeah,
because not only did he take over from Frank Lampard, who was, brought in this amazing group of players, but Thomas Tuchel changed the formation. He brought in a lot of the more experienced older players to kind of strengthen that back line. Yeah. And then he just utilised our great youth up front. And I think it's worked, obviously, to our advantage with the Champions League victory.
Is Pulisic still playing with them? With more, a lot of minutes?
Well, he's injured at the moment. That's the problem.
Because I haven't seen him this season yet.
Yeah, he's only played, I think, 1 or 2 games. But I think he did his ankle, right, or his Achilles or something. Yeah, so he's out again.
It's hard for me to keep up as much as I used to. I used to keep up with all the sports, and because of so many different sports.
Well,
it's tough.
You follow so many,
and plus actually working in sports, it's tough to keep track of everything, and it's literally impossible. It's like you wish you could do everything and have 25 hours in a day, but you can't.
Yeah, I know. I get that.
Yeah.
And that's the tricky thing as well, especially with a lot of these sports that are, especially for us here in Australia, a lot of the Premier League is played overnight at 2, 3 in the morning. It's so there's sometimes it's a bit tricky. Yeah. But then again, it is what it is.
The beauty of the internet, we can watch the highlights later.
Exactly. Yeah. Which is a very great thing. But so do you have any sort of predictions at this early stage? I know all the pundits in the media like to say, this person's going to win this, or this team's going to run away with it. I know it's way too early in the season to do stuff like this, but it's inevitable. Do you have a prediction for who's going to win it?
If Lukaku wins the Golden Boot, we'll win the league.
Okay.
I think if Lukaku does well, we'll do well. I don't know. I don't like predicting success. Sometimes I don't like predicting success for my team because it sets me up for failure.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
It feels worse when they lose. If I kept running around saying, Lions are going to win it, no doubt in my mind, Lions are going to win it, Chelsea's going to win it all, I would, number one, look like an idiot, and I have a bit more of a wiser head on my shoulders than I know. I know that my teams aren't always going to win. I'm not completely one-eyed. If I see a free kick against my team, I'm like, okay, yeah, he did hit him in the head. But then I guess you can't enjoy the highs as much as that. But whatever, I used to, and I'd get into arguments with people about, no, my team's better, and I'm like, these guys, it really doesn't matter. It really,
especially
honestly,
when the quality is so high as well. When you kind of just grasping at straws.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. So I would say I'd like Chelsea to win, but I don't think they. I think they might finish second. I think it'll be a close race, and they might just lose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it'll also be a close race, and I think they'll just win. That's what I
Okay.
that's what I
we
predict.
could be right. All right, cool.
So the other thing as well with regards to Chelsea is the Champions League defense that we're going to have to put on. I think it's going to be very, very tough for us to go back to back. Like PSG are obviously the favourites with the team they've got. Manchester City are, of course, a quality outfit, and who knows, there could be another team that pops up and does really well as well. I just, like, as much as I would love to see us go back to back, I don't think we could, but I don't think we will. What do you reckon?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so either.
I would love to,
because it's even harder than it's even harder to win.
It's the hardest competition to win.
Yeah, because it's a knockout. It's like you have one unlucky goal and that could mess you up for say you're in the quarters or the semis and you get one unlucky goal at the end of the second leg and you lose. It's like, well, all that hard work and it's
For
gone.
nothing,
Yeah. But it just makes last year even more special that we actually won it, which was,
especially in the fashion that we did.
Yeah, it
with
was
Thomas
such a
Tuchel coming in
young squad as well.
Yeah. And that's another good thing, similar to what we were talking about with the Brisbane Lions, is that, we have a young squad with a great list of experienced players as well. So that sort of combination sets us up for success, I feel like. So
Yes.
I agree. If Lukaku's firing and kicking goals, we're going to do really well this year. So.
Now, I really want to talk about the Ravens.
Okay.
Let's talk about... No, I'm kidding. We don't have to talk about NFL at all.
I don't know much about NFL.
Yeah, I know you don't
follow
follow NFL, but like... Sorry to date this, but it's a Tuesday today, and the NFL happened yesterday. And
Also, if you want to talk about it,
the
go
Ravens
for it.
won in one of the greatest games, not greatest games, the greatest finishes I've ever seen.
Okay. Tell me about it.
We basically, there was about 35 seconds left, and we were down by one point. The Detroit Lions kicked a field goal, and we marched our way to about halfway. And if you know about NFL, a field goal is worth 3 points, where you got to kick it between the uprights from a spot. And a 50-yarder is really good. 55, pretty good. 60 is like, whoa. The NFL record is 64 yards, which I don't know what that is in meters, but it's a long way. It's a long, long way. It's probably about 70 meters. And so our kicker, the greatest kicker of all time, Justin Tucker, goes up to the point and he is kicking from 66 yards.
Oh, shit.
So it would have been an NFL record if he made it. He strikes it, it doinks off the crossbar, the little crossbar, bump, jumps up in the air, and then falls just over. So he literally only just scraped it 66 yards at the buzzer to win the game by 2 points.
That's awesome.
It's the NFL record field goal. Insane. Like
To do it in that fashion as well.
To win the game, yeah. A lot of the times, the 64-yarder was at the end of the first half when they kind of, it was just a desperation thing. And he kicked it, and that was like a record. But this was to win the game. It was insane. Dude,
that's a pretty cool story. I'm gonna have to check the highlights out for that. Yeah. Well, to wrap this conversation up, I would say working in sport is definitely something that's quite enjoyable if you have the personality for it. If you enjoy sport and like working in an environment where you have to troubleshoot and work in a team-based environment, I think it's definitely worth pursuing. And
Yeah, I'd say it's a good combination of, it's like almost like being a tradie, but also like being a technician, like being a geek and a tradie. It's kind of a marriage of the two, where you need to
I've never thought of it that way.
But you need to be rather physical, like you need to carry a lot of gear. You need to, sometimes you're on a camera and your arms are getting pretty sore.
Or it's the camera's on your shoulder for a long period of time.
And it's getting sore, and you got to walk you got to walk pretty far and that kind of stuff. So it's a bit physically demanding, but also mentally demanding. So it's a good mix. Yeah, I think it's a good marriage of those two, and I think it definitely sets a certain personality type. Yeah, but there's definitely a lot of, especially now, there's a lot of like work in it. Not just sports live streaming, like regular live streaming. You can just have a broadcast. What do we call it? Like conferences. It just anything. Just people want to watch things online. Like it's
or even
so
like
easy
funerals
now.
And stuff as well.
Funerals, weddings. There's so much stuff that you can do with the same skills that you can learn for sports. So yeah, I'd say if anyone in film school is like wanting to pursue something other than classic movie making, but still using skills they've learned, there's a definite avenue there. Yeah.
I think that's a great way to end this podcast. Thank you
Right.
very much, Harry, for coming on.
That's all right.
I really, really appreciate it. I think you've added some very valuable things to this conversation and some interesting things to food for thought,
Cool.
if you will.
It's an important conversation. I'm glad we're having it.
Yeah. And the last thing that I will say for those who are subscribed to the Critic Kebab channel, make sure you keep your eyes peeled because I will be attending the NRL Grand Final here in Brisbane at Suncorp Stadium.
It's exciting.
Match vlog will be there. I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it's a good game. I don't care who wins, Panthers or the Rabbitohs, but hopefully it's a good game. And yeah, look forward to that. So thanks very much for watching or listening wherever you are around the world. And I will see you in another video very soon.